Welcome back to the Deep Dive, and a special welcome to all of our listeners joining us on the Goodreads Self-Growth channel. It is great to have you with us. Today, we are tackling a word that, I'll be honest, usually makes my skin crawl just a little bit.
Oh, and what word might that be?
Persuasion.
Yes, that's a loaded term for sure.
It is. I mean, when I hear persuasion, my mind immediately goes to, a used car salesman. He's in a cheap polyester suit, maybe smells a little like stale coffee, and he's trying to fast talk me out of my life savings for a car that is definitely going to break down in like 3 blocks.
Right.
It just feels pushy. It feels like manipulation. Yeah. At its core, it feels like a battle where one person has to win and the other person, well, they have to lose.
And that is the common misconception. Honestly, it's a tragedy that the word has been hijacked by that exact imagery. Because if we look at the source material we're diving into today, specifically the work of Bob Burg in The Art of Persuasion, that aggressive, hard sell approach is actually the complete opposite of what true persuasion is.
And that's exactly why I was so relieved going through these sources. Because Burg just flips the script entirely. He's not talking about tricking people or, using some kind of linguistic hack to mind control them. He's talking about something much, much more human.
Exactly. I mean, if you take nothing else away from this deep dive today, it should be this core philosophy from the material. The world doesn't reward takers, it rewards givers.
Which sounds so counterintuitive if your goal is to get someone to do something. Like, if I want a raise from my boss or I'm trying to convince my kid to eat their vegetables, isn't that inherently about me taking something, getting my way?
It feels that way on the surface, doesn't it? But Burg argues that true persuasion isn't about defeating someone in an argument. It's not about this verbal judo where you pin the other person down until they finally tap out and say, "Uncle."
Right.
It's really about creating a situation where everyone wins. He defines it as the art of understanding, not the art of conquering.
I love that distinction, the art of understanding. So that's our mission for today. We're going to decode this. We're looking at The Art of Persuasion by Bob Burg, and we're going to pull apart the psychological tools and the practical habits that allow a person to genuinely influence others without force, without manipulation.
It's all about that journey from a taker mindset to a giver mindset.
And we have some really specific frameworks to get through. I'm excited about these. We're going to talk about what Burg calls the golden rule of influence, which is totally foundational. Then we'll look at the feel, felt, found technique, which honestly seems like a lifesaver for any kind of difficult conversation.
It absolutely is. And we're going to talk about the power of silence, which is something I think most of us, especially in this fast-paced world, are just terrible at.
Oh, I am terrible at silence. I feel every single gap. I have this fear that if I stop talking, I'm losing the audience, I'm losing the connection.
Well, by the end of this hour, you might just learn that silence can be the loudest, most persuasive thing you can say.
Let's hope so. Okay, so where do we start? Let's unpack that foundation first. The source material hits us right out of the gate with what Burg calls the golden rule of influence.
This is the bedrock. You cannot build a house of persuasion without this foundation in place. The rule is simple but profound. It states, all things being equal, people do business with and listen to people they know, like, and trust.
Know, like, and trust. It sounds so simple, almost like a cliche you'd see on a LinkedIn motivational poster or something. But I feel like we need to really break down what those 3 words actually mean in this context. Because knowing someone isn't just, recognizing their face.
Right, not at all. And this is the first place people go wrong. It's not just name recognition. In the context of persuasion, know means understanding the other person's world. It's about deep empathy.
So it's not about them knowing me, it's about them feeling that I know them.
Precisely. It's a bidirectional understanding. Do they feel seen by you? If I'm trying to persuade you to, say, adopt a new software system at work, but I haven't taken the time to know your daily frustrations, your workflow, your fears about learning something new, then I'm just making noise. I'm not communicating.
It's the difference between a telemarketer who knows my name, because it's on a script, and a friend who knows I'm stressed because they actually took a moment to ask how I'm doing.
That's a perfect analogy. One is just data, the other is a genuine connection, and that connection leads directly to the second pillar.
Okay, this is the one that trips people up. I worry about this one personally because it makes you think you have to be this super charming, life of the party type of person.
The glad-handing, backslapping salesperson?
Exactly. I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm not the guy who walks into a room and is high-fiving everyone. Does that mean I'm just out of luck? That I can't be persuasive?
Not at all. In fact, the source material argues that sometimes that kind of high-energy charm can completely backfire because it feels fake. It feels like a performance. It can feel desperate.
Yes. Burg argues that like is really about genuine warmth and relatability. It's about authenticity. We like people who are real. We like people who make us feel comfortable and safe in their presence. You don't have to be a roaring extrovert to be likable. You just have to be a decent, authentic human being.
It's that feeling you get when you meet someone and they just have a good, calm energy, right? You just want to be around them because you can tell they aren't trying to constantly impress you or get something from you.
Precisely. They aren't performing for you. And that authenticity, that lack of performance, is what builds the third, and you could argue the most critical pillar, trust.
The sources describe trust as the strongest currency. I love that phrasing.
It is. Because unlike money, you can't just go out and print more of it. Trust is earned in drips and lost in buckets. It is the hardest thing to build and by far the easiest thing to lose.
And what's the connection to persuasion? The book makes a really critical point here. It's that if someone doesn't trust you, your logic is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You could have the most brilliant data, the most perfectly crafted argument, the solution to all their worldly problems. But if that trust pillar isn't solidly in place, they won't hear a single word you say. Their brain will not process it.
That explains so much about public life, about why certain leaders or experts fail to connect with people even if they have good policies or sound data. If the trust isn't there, the message is just dead on arrival.
It creates a filter. If I don't trust you, my brain is actively, subconsciously looking for the lie in everything you say. I'm not listening to understand. I'm listening to find the flaw, to catch you in a trap. It's a defensive posture.
That sounds absolutely exhausting for both people in the conversation.
It is, and that's why trust is earned through character, not just competence. It's about consistency over time. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Are you reliable? Do you have their best interests at heart or just your own? That's what builds that currency of trust.
There's a metaphor in the source material that I absolutely loved, and it connects so perfectly to this idea of building like and trust. It's the concept of the invisible board.
Oh, this is one of my favorite visualizations from Burg's work. It's so simple, but it can completely change how you walk into any room, any conversation.
So the idea is that every single person you meet, your boss, your spouse, the barista at the coffee shop, a stranger on the street, every one of them is walking around with a giant invisible sign hanging around their neck.
And what does that sign say?
The sign says, "Make me feel important."
Make me feel important. It's the universal human cry, isn't it? We all want to be seen. We all want to be validated. We all want to feel like we matter in this world.
But the mistake we make in most attempts at persuasion is that we walk into the room wearing our own sign. And our sign says, "Look how important I am."
Yes, we lead with our resume. Look at my degree, look at my fancy title, look at the features of my product, look at my brilliant data.
We're trying to prove our own worth, our own importance.
Exactly. We're asking them to read our sign. But if you can flip that script, if you can mentally see that sign hanging around their neck and make your primary goal in that interaction to fulfill that request to make them feel important, you disarm them completely. You change the entire dynamic of the interaction.
It's not about flattery, though, is it? Because I think people can smell fake flattery from a mile away. That just destroys trust.
No, and that's a crucial distinction. Flattery is manipulation. It's insincere praise designed to get something. This is about genuine appreciation. It's about validating their existence. It can be as simple as remembering someone's name or asking a thoughtful follow-up question about something they mentioned last week.
It's about paying attention.
It's about paying attention. When you fulfill that emotional need for someone, when you make them feel genuinely seen and heard, you create a level of psychological safety. And it is only from within that bubble of safety that true persuasion can ever happen.
So if I'm in a meeting with a colleague and they're getting really defensive, digging their heels in on a point, it's probably because on some level I've ignored their sign. I'm accidentally making them feel stupid or small or ignored, not important.
100%. The moment you violate their sign, you trigger their ego's defense mechanisms. And once the ego's walls are up, the ears are completely closed, you are no longer debating the topic. You are attacking their very identity, and they will fight you to the end.
This all transitions us perfectly into the big mindset shift that the book talks about. We've touched on it, but let's go deeper now. The fundamental shift from being a taker to being a giver.
This is the core philosophy. This is the engine that drives everything else. And it goes right back to that critical difference between manipulation and persuasion.
Let's define those clearly because the sources are very specific, and I think in everyday life people blur those lines all the time.
Okay, so manipulation is using someone for your own benefit, period. It's a short-term win for you, but it's almost always a long-term loss for the relationship. It's an act of extraction. You are taking value from them without replacing it or by giving them something of lesser value in return.
Like the used car salesman. He gets his commission, I get a car that breaks down, a lemon.
Exactly. He wins, you lose. It's zero-sum. But persuasion, as Burg defines it, is helping someone do something that is in their best interest as well as yours. The key is that it has to be a mutual benefit. It has to be a win-win.
There's a great quote from the source that puts this into action. You can't make someone feel important by telling them they are. You do it by treating them that way.
It's action versus just empty words. And this brings us to what Burg calls the law of value and the law of influence. These sound like, laws of physics, but they're really laws of social dynamics.
Okay, let's unpack these. The law of value. What's that about?
The law of value states that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment.
Wait, hold on. Give more than I take in payment? That sounds like a terrible business model. That sounds like I'm going to go bankrupt. If I sell a service for $100, but I give $200 worth of value, aren't I just losing money?
It sounds that way if you look at it purely transactionally in a single snapshot. But you have to think about value more broadly. It's not just the product or the service itself, it's the entire experience. It's the peace of mind, the follow-up support, the attention to detail, the care, the reliability. It's about over-delivering on the promise.
So you're not just selling a widget, you're selling an experience of being cared for.
Precisely. When you consistently over-deliver, you become indispensable. You become the person everyone wants to work with, the business everyone wants to buy from. You are building that emotional bank account we talked about earlier. You are creating a massive surplus of goodwill.
And that surplus is what gives you leverage or influence later on.
Exactly. Which leads directly to the law of influence. This law states, your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first.
This is the paradox, isn't it? The source calls it a paradox, and it really feels like one. By focusing on making the other person successful, you inadvertently ensure your own success.
It is the ultimate paradox of success in life and business. If you chase success directly, if you're always asking what's in it for me, it often eludes you. But if you chase significance, meaning if you focus on helping others succeed, success has a funny way of chasing you down.
Because people want to help those who have helped them. It triggers that deep-seated human instinct for reciprocity.
It's hardwired into us.
There's a story in the source material that illustrates this so perfectly. It's about a young entrepreneur meeting a very powerful investor. And honestly, it sounds like a scene straight out of a movie.
Yes, this is a fantastic example of the giver mindset in a really high-stakes situation. So you have to picture the scene. You have this young, passionate entrepreneur, and he's pitching a very wealthy, very cynical, seen-it-all-before investor.
Right. Usually this is a begging dynamic. The entrepreneur is desperate. Please, please give me money. My idea is the greatest thing ever. The power dynamic is completely lopsided.
Completely. The entrepreneur is the taker, the investor is the giver. But this entrepreneur completely flipped the script. He walked in, sat down, and didn't even open his laptop or his pitch deck.
So what did he do? That's a bold move.
He looked the investor right in the eye and he said, I don't want your money yet. I want a chance to prove to you that your trust would be in the right place.
Wow. That takes some serious guts.
It's an incredible move. Think about what he did. He wasn't selling the product. He wasn't selling the idea. He was selling a belief. He was selling his own integrity. He was essentially saying, I value your trust more than I value your check.
He went straight for the trust pillar of the golden rule. He showed he wasn't just another taker looking for a quick payout. He was a giver, offering the investor a safe place to put his trust.
Exactly. He made the investor feel safe. He made the investor feel that his capital, not just his financial capital, but his reputational capital, would be respected and protected. That is the giver mindset in pure action. It's looking at every interaction and asking, how can I serve this person? Rather than, how can I close this person?
It's a fundamental shift in motive. And what was the result in the story?
The investor, who had probably heard 1,000 pitches, just looked at him and said, you got it. The check was signed. Because the trust had been established before the product was even discussed.
It seems like so much of this, really all of this, comes down to understanding how we human beings actually make decisions. And the sources are crystal clear on this.
Yeah.
We are not the logical creatures we pretend to be.
We love to think we are. We pride ourselves on being rational. We make spreadsheets, we do pros and cons lists, we think we weigh all the evidence and output a decision like a computer. But the neuroscience and Burg's analysis says that's not what happens at all.
So how does it actually work in our brains?
It's simple and it's profound. People make decisions based on emotion, and then they justify those decisions later with logic.
Emotion first, logic second.
Always. Every time. Even in the most illogical fields like business or finance. The gut feeling comes first. Do I like this person? Do I trust this proposal? Does this make me feel safe or excited or scared? If the emotional answer is yes, then the brain's logic centers get to work finding all the data to back up that feeling.
But the huge mistake most aspiring persuaders make, and I am 100% guilty of this, is that we lead with the logic. We lead with the justification.
We lead with the facts, the data, the specs, the features. We just dump a mountain of information on people thinking we can overwhelm them into submission with our brilliance.
I do this all the time. I build a dossier at evidence. I think if I just show them enough charts and graphs, they'll have no choice but to agree with me.
And while you're proudly presenting your dossier, they are emotionally checking out. Because you haven't given them a reason to care. You haven't hooked their heart. You haven't triggered the emotion that is the actual driver of the yes. You're speaking to their neocortex, but the decision is being made deep down in their limbic system.
There is a fantastic anecdote in the sources about a water filter salesman that just drives this home perfectly. And it's kind of heartbreaking at first, until the pivot.
Oh, the water filter story. It's a classic, perfect example of this logic versus emotion battle. So picture this. A salesman is in a woman's home. He's trying to sell a high-end, fairly expensive water filtration system.
And he's doing what we all do. He's leading with the logic.
Exactly. He's doing what he was probably trained to do. He's listing the technical specs. He's talking about bacteria control percentages, purification levels, the advanced multi-stage carbon technology inside the filter.
Blah, blah, blah. He's probably boring her to tears.
Yeah.
You can just picture her eyes glazing over.
Completely. And the mother, she's polite, but she's totally disengaged. She's looking at the clock on the wall. She's thinking about what to make for dinner. And then she gives him the classic brush off. This is very interesting. I'll think about it.
Which almost always means no. It's the polite way of saying, please leave my house now.
It is the kiss of death in sales. Logic has failed. The specs and features didn't move her an inch. But then the salesman has a moment of clarity. He pivots. He realizes he's losing her. He remembers the no part of the triad. He has to understand her world.
So what does he do?
He looks at her and asks a simple, direct, emotional question. He says, "Your little boy had a stomach ache last night after drinking the tap water, right? Do you want that to happen again?"
Oof. That is a gut punch. That's not about carbon filters or purification levels anymore.
It's not. It's visceral. It's about her child's pain. It's about her role as a mother and a protector.
And what happened?
The deal closed immediately. She bought the system right there on the spot.
Because he stopped selling a machine and he started selling safety. He started selling peace of mind.
He stopped selling purification levels and started selling no more late-night stomach aches for your little boy. He tapped into her most primal emotions: fear, love, protection. Once that emotional switch was flipped, her brain said, "I absolutely need this." The logic of the price or the specs just became secondary justification. She probably told her husband later, "Oh, we bought it because it has this great certification," but she really bought it because she didn't want to see her kid in pain ever again.
This connects so well to the idea of framing that the sources discuss. It's all about speaking their language, not yours.
Yes, framing is everything. It's about presenting your idea in a way that resonates with the other person's worldview, their values, their priorities. The salesman finally realized that the mother's worldview is centered on her child's health and well-being, not on filtration technology.
So the rule of thumb here is, don't say, "I want you to do this because it helps me." That's a taker's frame.
Right. Instead, you say, "If you do this, here is how it will benefit you by." You have to translate your desire into their benefit. If you're asking your boss for a raise, don't talk about how your rent went up. That's your problem. Frame it around the value you bring to the company and how keeping you motivated and happy ensures that value continues to grow. Frame it as a win for them.
And this idea of framing, it goes beyond just the words we choose. It goes into something the book calls mirroring.
Mirroring,
Yeah.
yes. This is where we get into the more subtle physical side of building connection and reducing resistance.
It's about matching their energy, right? Their vibe.
It is. It's about synchrony. Imagine if someone is speaking very slowly, very calmly, maybe they're a bit tired or contemplative, and you come into the conversation talking a mile a minute, super high energy, bouncing off the walls. You are completely out of sync. You are creating a kind of social dissonance.
It's annoying. It feels jarring.
It's very jarring. Mirroring is the art of subtly matching their tone of voice, their pace of speech, even their general posture. It sends a powerful subconscious signal to their brain that says, I am like you. We are on the same team.
And we know from psychology that people like people who are like them. It's a shortcut to trust.
Exactly. It reduces resistance before you even get to your main point. It makes them feel comfortable and understood on a primal level.
But you have to be careful not to mimic them, like a mime,
Yeah.
right? That would just be creepy and weird.
Laughs.
Yes.
Subtlety is absolutely key here. This is not a game of, Simon says, if they scratch their nose, you don't immediately scratch your nose. It's about aligning your overall energy, not becoming their parody. It's like tuning your instrument to be in the same key as theirs so you can make music together instead of just noise.
So we've got the mindset shift, we've got the emotional hook. But to find that hook in the first place, like the salesman found the detail about the stomach ache, you have to actually be paying attention. And that brings us to section 4, active listening.
Or, as the book puts it, listen like your future depends on it. Because, in many ways, it does.
The sources identify a common terrible habit that I think 99% of us are guilty of. I know I am. We don't really listen. We just wait for our turn to speak.
We are reloading. While you are talking, I'm not truly processing your words, your feelings, your intent. I am formulating my brilliant rebuttal. I'm waiting for you to take a breath so I can jump in with what I want to say next. That is not listening. That is conversational combat.
So what is active listening in this context? What's the difference?
Active listening is listening to understand, not to reply. It's a seismic shift in intent. It's listening for the feeling behind the words. It's hearing what isn't being said. It's putting your own ego, your own agenda on pause and fully immersing yourself in their reality for a moment.
And there's a tactical tool here that is so simple, but so incredibly powerful. I started trying to use it in my own life, and it's actually really hard to do consistently. It's the 2-second pause.
The 2-second pause. It sounds so easy, but it's a discipline. Tell me about it.
It's exactly what it sounds like. When the other person finishes speaking, before you utter a single word, you count to 2 in your head. 1, 2, and then you speak.
That feels like an eternity in a fast-paced conversation. We are so used to that rapid-fire, overlapping, almost competitive style of dialogue.
It feels long. To the person who's doing the pausing, I agree. But think about it from the other side. To the person who just spoke, how does that pause feel?
To them, it feels like respect.
Exactly. Why?
It signals that you actually absorbed what they said. You didn't just have a canned response locked and loaded. You took a moment to actually consider their words. It shows you value their input enough to digest it before responding. It gives you a sense of authority, it calms the interaction, and it makes the other person feel incredibly validated.
It completely prevents that rapid-fire arguing where you're just interrupting each other and no one's actually listening.
It slows the entire dance down. It lowers the temperature in the room. If you pause, they are more likely to pause. It's contagious in a good way.
There's a story in the sources about a teacher and a student that really illustrates the difference between judging someone and understanding them, which is the absolute heart of listening.
This is a really touching one, and it's so instructive. So you have a student who is underperforming, he's defensive, maybe he's acting out in class. The teacher has been doing the standard thing, lecturing him. You need to improve your marks. You need to study more. Why are you so lazy?
So the teacher is judging the behavior, not understanding the cause.
Exactly. And what's the result? The student just puts up a wall, he shuts down, he gives one-word answers. Silence, defensiveness. He just digs his heels in deeper.
Because he feels attacked. But then the teacher has a moment of insight and shifts his approach.
He does. Instead of launching into another lecture, the teacher sits down with the student, looks at him, and says a very simple phrase. He says, I'm not judging you. I'm trying to understand you.
That's a powerful sentence. I'm trying to understand you.
It completely shattered the student's wall. The source says the student actually started crying. He opened up about what was really going on. There was trouble at home. He felt insecure about the material. And once that connection was made, he completely changed his behavior.
Why did that simple phrase work when all the lectures and punishments failed?
Because you cannot persuade someone you are actively judging. Judgment creates resistance. It's an attack. If I feel judged by you, my only instinct is to defend myself. But understanding creates connection. As soon as the student felt safe from judgment, he was willing to be vulnerable and eventually cooperative.
It goes right back to the invisible board. Make me feel important. Being judged makes you feel small and defective. Being understood makes you feel seen and important.
Exactly. Understanding must always come before influence. You have to earn the right to influence them by taking the time to understand them first.
Okay, this is all fantastic in theory. Let's get really tactical. We've got the philosophy down. But what do we actually say when things get heated or we hit a point of disagreement? The sources provide some very specific, practical communication tools. The first one is called the I message.
This is foundational communication skills, Communication 101, but it is the hardest thing to remember and practice when you are annoyed or angry. The big problem we all have is using you statements. You always leave the dishes in the sink, you are late again, you are being completely unreasonable.
These sound like accusations. Because they are accusations.
They are. They are verbal fingers pointed directly at the other person's chest. And what is the natural human reaction when we are accused of something? We defend, we fight back. It instantly becomes an ego battle and the original issue is forgotten.
So how does the I message fix this destructive cycle?
The I message brilliantly shifts the focus from an attack on the other person's character to a statement about your feelings and the concrete effect of their behavior. The formula is simple. I feel your emotion when the specific, non-judgmental behavior because the effect it has on you.
Okay, give me an example. Let's take the late colleague. Instead of, you are so unprofessional for being late all the time.
You would use the formula. You'd say, I feel anxious when our meetings start late because I really want to respect everyone's time and get through our agenda.
It's so much harder to argue with that statement.
It's almost impossible. You can argue with, I am unprofessional. You can say, no, I'm not. There was traffic. But you cannot argue with, I feel anxious. How can you tell me I don't feel what I feel? It removes the accusation and it reframes the situation. Now, it invites the other person to help you solve the problem of your feeling rather than forcing them to defend their own character.
It de-escalates the conflict immediately. You're not attacking them, you're asking for their help.
Immediately. It turns a potential enemy into a collaborative problem solver. It's a game changer.
Now, what about when someone disagrees with your idea? Or they have a clear objection? Your price is too high, or I just don't think this strategy will work. The sources highlight a very specific technique called feel, felt, found.
This is a classic technique, often taught in sales, but its application is universal. It works with your kids, with your spouse, in any negotiation. It's a 3-step framework for handling objections without creating an argument. It's like conversational aikido. You use their momentum instead of blocking it.
Okay, walk us through the 3 steps.
Step 1 is feel. You start by validating their emotion. You say something like, I understand how you feel. Notice, you are not agreeing that they are factually correct, but you are acknowledging that their feeling is valid. You are, in effect, stepping over to their side of the table for a moment.
Okay, that makes sense. It builds rapport. Step 2.
Step 2 is felt. Now you relate to them on a deeper level. You say, I've felt the same way, or many other people have felt the same way. This builds a powerful bridge. It communicates, you are not crazy for feeling this way. You are not alone. I've been there too. It creates a sense of camaraderie.
And the final step, step 3.
Step 3 is found. This is the pivot. This is where you gently guide them toward the solution. You say, but what I found, or but what we found was, and then you present the counter evidence or the new perspective.
Let's try it with a real-world example. A potential client says, this project is just way too expensive. It's out of our budget.
Okay, so the amateur move is to get defensive and say, no, it's not. Look at all the value you're getting. That's argumentative.
Right, it creates conflict.
So instead, you use the framework. You'd say, I understand how you feel about the investment. It is a significant amount of money. Many of our best clients felt the exact same way when they first saw the proposal. But what they found was that the efficiency savings the project created actually covered the initial cost within just 6 months.
That is so smooth. It's respectful and persuasive at the same time.
It flows naturally. It moves from opposition, you're wrong, to alignment, we are the same, and then to the solution. It takes the negative energy of their objection and gracefully redirects it toward your desired outcome rather than meeting it with a brick wall.
It's so much better than just saying, well, you get what you pay for.
Laughs, which is basically just a polite way of calling them cheap. Feel, felt, found is all about respect and empathy.
We've talked a lot about words and frameworks, but the sources really emphasize that a huge part of persuasion is what happens between the words. It's the power of subtlety.
Subtlety is where the master persuaders really operate. The amateurs are loud, forceful, and obvious. The masters are quiet, subtle, and almost invisible.
And the first rule of subtlety, according to the book, is resisting that powerful urge to win the argument.
This is the ego trap that almost everyone falls into. The quote from the book is, "Never argue to win, argue to understand." If you win the argument, if you intellectually crush the other person, you prove them wrong on every point, you make them look stupid, you have completely lost the persuasion.
Because you've made them feel like a loser. You've damaged their ego.
And losers resent winners. They don't cooperate with them. They look for ways to undermine them later. The goal of persuasion is agreement, not victory. You want them to walk over to your side willingly, not be dragged there, bruised, and defeated.
There's a story about a CEO in the sources who seemed to understand this on a very deep level.
Yes, this is a great example of leadership. This CEO had a rule for his executive team. He told them, "I only want ideas that prove me wrong."
Wow, that takes incredible confidence. Most bosses, let's be honest, want ideas that confirm their own genius.
It takes incredible confidence and humility. But think about what that one sentence does to the culture of a company. It removes the fear of disagreeing with the person in charge. It actively invites challenge. And the source says this exact attitude of humility led to the company's biggest and most profitable innovation.
Because he wasn't trying to win every meeting by being the smartest person in the room. He was trying to find the best possible answer, regardless of where it came from.
That is the giver mindset in its purest form. Giving up the need to be right in exchange for the best collective outcome. It's putting the shared mission above the individual ego.
Let's talk more about the nonverbal side of influence, tone and body language.
We all know that old statistic that communication is like 93% nonverbal, which may or may not be accurate, but the principle is sound. In persuasion, your tone commands the room. A shouting voice is a sign of weakness. It implies you've lost control of yourself and the situation. But a calm, measured, composed tone implies authority and confidence.
It's the whisper tactic. Sometimes getting quieter actually forces people to lean in and listen harder.
It does. It draws them in. And then there's the body language. An open posture, making eye contact, and something the book calls the silent nod. Just nodding slightly as someone speaks is incredibly powerful. It non-verbally says, "I'm listening, I'm with you, keep going." It encourages them to open up more.
And then there's the scariest, most powerful nonverbal tool of all, silence.
The power of silence. It's the ultimate tool of the confident persuader.
The source gives a sales example where silence is literally the closing technique.
Yes, it's the golden rule of closing a deal. He who speaks first after the price is presented loses. A professional salesperson presents the price and then shuts up, completely and totally silent.
And that silence is so uncomfortable. The urge to fill it is overwhelming. I know I would be sweating trying to think of something to say.
It is physically painful for most people. They want to jump in and justify the price or explain the features again or offer a discount. But the expert knows that silence does the heavy lifting. It forces the other person to process the decision. It creates a vacuum that the client often feels compelled to fill with a yes.
If you keep talking, you might actually talk them out of a deal they were ready to make.
Exactly. You're interrupting their internal decision-making process. Give them the space and the quiet to realize for themselves that they want it.
That leads us to our final big section, handling resistance. Because no matter how smooth you are, no matter how much you listen, people will resist. It's human nature.
They will, but the key is to understand why they resist. And the source gives us this brilliant insight. People don't resist change, they resist being changed.
Ooh, that's a subtle but massive distinction. I don't mind changing my mind. I just don't want you to be the one to change it for me.
Precisely. It's all about autonomy and control. If I feel like you are forcing an idea on me, I will dig my heels in just to prove that I am in charge of my own mind, even if I secretly agree with you.
So the goal is not to force your reasoning on them. The goal is to create a space where they come to the realization on their own.
You want them to walk away thinking it was their idea all along. That's the pinnacle of persuasion.
There is a fantastic story about a teacher and punctuality that illustrates this realization versus reasoning concept perfectly.
This is one of my favorite anecdotes in the entire book because it's so clever. So you have a teacher, and his students are constantly late for class. He tries everything. He tries reasoning with them. He tries scolding. He tries explaining the logic of time management. If you are late, you miss the important introduction.
And of course, nothing works. Kids don't respond to lectures.
The reasoning completely failed, so he tries a totally different, much more subtle approach. The next time a student arrives late, the teacher doesn't say a single word to him. He doesn't scold him, doesn't even make eye contact. He simply walks to the blackboard and writes a sentence. He writes, "Today you lost 1 minute. Tomorrow you will lose an opportunity."
Wow, that's heavy.
And he didn't speak. He just let the words hang there in the air for everyone to see.
And what was the result?
The book says the class was never late again.
Why did that one sentence work when all the lectures failed?
Because he triggered a realization. He didn't tell them you are bad for being late. He showed them the true cost of their own actions in a way that hit them emotionally and personally. They internalized the lesson because they arrived at the conclusion themselves. He didn't change them. He created an environment where they chose to change themselves.
That is the art of persuasion. It's almost poetic in its elegance.
That is it, right there.
And finally, what if the person isn't just resistant? What if they are actively hostile? What if they come into the conversation as an enemy?
The strategy is simple to say, but hard to do. Turn enemies into allies. When you are faced with aggression, the absolute worst thing you can do is match it. If you push back against pressure, you just create more pressure. It becomes a fight.
There's a quote for this too. I don't shout because I am here to convince, not to compete.
A beautiful quote. The key is to stay calm, absorb their anger, acknowledge it. I can see you are really upset about this, and you have a right to be. And then you make the crucial shift from me versus you to us.
So instead of getting defensive about your price being too high, you would say,
You'd say, this is a tough budget to work with. Let's see how we can figure out a way to make this work. Suddenly, you are not adversaries anymore. You are sitting on the same side of the table looking at a puzzle together. You have framed the problem as the enemy, not the person.
that simple linguistic shift from me versus you to us versus the problem is a complete game changer. It diffuses almost all the tension.
It's the ultimate de-escalation technique. It makes you a partner, not an opponent.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground today. From the foundational golden rule of know, like, and trust, to the giver mindset, the water filter story, the I message, feel, felt, found, and the incredible power of silence.
It really is a comprehensive toolkit for more effective and more ethical human interaction.
If we have to summarize the mission of this deep dive, it really does come back to character, doesn't it? Persuasion isn't some cheap trick or a tactic you deploy.
No. As Bob Burg says so well, persuasion is about character, not caricature. It's not about putting on a mask and pretending to be a cartoonish salesperson. It's about being a person of value, a person of integrity. The best persuaders aren't the best talkers. They are the best connectors.
That's the real aha moment for me in all of this. I always thought persuasion was about having the gift of gab, but it's not. It's actually about having the gift of the ear and the gift of the heart.
Beautifully put. It really is all about listening and genuine empathy.
So, as we wrap up, we always like to leave our listeners with a final provocative thought, something for you to mull over.
I would challenge everyone listening with this. The next time you want to convince someone of something, whether it's a multi-million-dollar business deal or just getting your toddler to eat their peas, start for a second. Don't think about what you want to say. Instead, think about how you want them to feel.
Because, as the saying goes, people might forget your words.
But they will never, ever forget how you made them feel. And here is the real provocation. What if your silence is actually louder than your argument? What if, in your next negotiation or disagreement, you made a conscious effort to speak half as much and listen twice as hard? Just try it. See what happens.
That is a challenge I am definitely going to accept. I might just stay silent for the rest of the day and see how it goes.
Louds, I highly doubt that, but it's worth a shot.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the art of persuasion here on Goodreads Self-Growth. Go out there, apply the golden rule, become a giver, and we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.